So, what was it like when the ECW talents eventually started, filtering into XPW? I'm thinking of Sabu, New Jack, Shane Douglas, et cetera, Candido, to name a few. What was that? Was that a little tense? Because we think about the WWE when they absorbed WCW and they got the cold shoulder and they were marginalized and blah blah blah. What was that like for XPW?
Well, I mean, there was really, as far as from where I stood, there wasn't any tension. I mean, there was when Joey Styles came in at first, you know. So I can't speak for the wrestlers because if there was a little tension with me and Joey Styles, I'm sure there was tension with, let's say, Sandman and Supreme, for example, or Vic Grimes and Pogo the Clown. You know, just incredible and homeless Jimmy. We had our homegrown talent, and I'm sure there had to be, and there was. I remember when Shane Douglas did his famous speech at the Palace, and XPW has arrived, and we were all watching that at our meeting room in Van Nuys. We'd have a Tuesday night meeting, and then Rivera and I would come in every Wednesday for television. But Rob, like after that Palace show with Shane Douglas, it was like, Rob, all right, everybody sit down, lights out. And we watched that interview and it was like, wow, this is like, I mean, for Shane Douglas at that time to do an interview shoot almost style at the time was a big deal. Okay, there we go. And then, I remember feeling that the boys were a little bit like, oh, the boys don't totally like this right now. You know what I mean? And so that was it is what it is. But overall, I think we did a good job not just putting our homegrown guys down on the bottom scraps and putting ECW. Everybody kind of coincided. Juventud Guerrera would fight Chaos. Sandman would fight Supreme. So we definitely, I thought Kevin and Rob did a good job putting everybody on the same playing field, which was very important to do in order to make XPW seem legit. If we brought all these guys in and we used them, they're big names, we would be diminishing the league by not intermixing our own guys who maybe were not seen as much a big time, but therefore eventually would be because they're on the same playing field. I thought that was very important. A lot of leagues didn't do that. They would just be blinded and kind of mark out for these big names and not have the business sense to intermix them. And I thought Kevin and Rob did a good job with that.
Yeah, absolutely. What are your thoughts on the announcement this year of?
I don't know if I'm not hearing you here.
Can you hear me now?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Oh, I that's weird.
Can't hear me now?
Can't hear you. No.
Oh boy,
that's very strange. So sorry.
No worries. How about now?
Okay, now
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I see your lips moving, but I can't. I'm not making you out.
Why don't you jump back in?
How about now?
I can hear you. Can you hear me? No, eh?
Yeah, my mic's on. That's weird.
You're not muted either. Let me.
You want me to exit the studio and come back? Okay, sorry, folks. Let me do that. 1 second.
No worries. These are the issues that we encounter using StreamYard, unfortunately, especially if you're doing an interview on a phone. If you get a call or a text, what happens is we sometimes lose video and audio or both. So hopefully this will be resolved when Kris comes back. Here we go right now.
Yep,
Can you hear me now?
All right, thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, excellent. I was
I see you.
No worries. I was just telling the fans that sometimes happens when you get a call or a text. I just wanted to ask you about your thoughts on Paul Heyman being inducted into the Hall of Fame, WWE Hall of Fame this year, and whether or not you had any interactions with him over the years.
I don't think I honestly don't think I ever met him. I don't think we ever met. Yeah, I because even in the heat wave thing, I he came out, he confronted a few guys. Messiah was one of them. Chaos was one of them, and I was at the other end of the building in the other brawl. So but and also aside, look, there were so many guys at the heat wave thing that ended up working, like you said, for XPW, like you said before too, with Rob and Paul doing something. There's money to be made. Same thing. When ECW folded, it was all, come and make your money in XPW. It really exposed a little bit that it was not a work, the animosity, but kind of people thought it was a little bit because the guys came. No, wrestling is just you work. But no, aside from that, I don't think I ever met him. If I did, it was like somewhere in passing, but I don't think I did. Hey, look, I really am a fan of his old stuff, Paulie Dangerously with the phone. Like,
Me too.
I love all that stuff, man. And so just that alone, and then you have to give it up for him for what he did in the creation of ECW. You can't take anything away, whether you're a fan of that type of wrestling or not. And just to let you know, most people in XPW were products of the 80s, really. And we were all in this extreme league. We really were all WWF old school regular wrestling guys. We weren't these extreme guys, but that was the product that we were a part of at the time. So I saying that, whether you're a fan of the extreme style or not, he definitely deserves to be there for what he did, in an independent sense with ECW rising up the way it did. And it just his work back in the 80s, like, so, and of course being in Philly, perfect setting right there.
Yeah, makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to definitely devote some singular time to the free fall event at the Olympic, between that scaffold match between New Jack and Vic Grimes, which I think there's an argument to be made is even more so than Foley off the cage. I think is the most extreme bump ever in professional wrestling, and a lot of fans that maybe not as familiar with XPW's catalog look to that and think of XPW. Can you please talk about your understanding of how that went down and when you saw that occur?
Yeah. First off, out of body experience. I remember, I'll get to the lead up, but when it happened, when it was like happening, we were announcing it live. We didn't do all the shows live, but some of the shows we do the play-by-play. It would be set up for us to do live. I remember walking into the arena, and I don't know how to explain this, Jack, but like something intuitively, there was this inner knowledge of what this was. I know it sounds weird, but it's like I felt like almost like an out of body experience where I came to that place from the future, because I knew, wow, I get to go back in time to this big moment in wrestling history. I don't know how to explain. I know it sounds a little off the wall, but I knew that this was a huge moment, not just another extreme wild XPW night of action, which there were a lot of. But that this was this is a big time moment in pro wrestling history. Like I was coming in and out of that, and just being there doing it. And then back into this, it was like an out of body experience looking up at the scaffold. Leading up to the event, oh, okay, yeah, I remember that ECW thing they did. Oh, we're going to reenact that kind of, 40 feet? How high is 40 feet? Pro, it is high? Oh, yeah, they've never done that before. Oh, okay. And I remember going to the arena, seeing the scaffold, seeing Vic. See, that's another thing too. You know, you have your matches that it's a scary stunt. But then when you got the two guys that really kind of have beef with each other, and you see that in the back, whether they're working it or not, but it didn't matter because it's like, well, shit, Jack didn't want to be around Vic. Vic's over here kind of pacing, hoping everything's going to be okay. So it was almost a show in itself in the back. Like if there was a documentary crew there, oh my gosh, it would this iconic moment would have even been more iconic, kind of like the Montreal screw job when you saw in the back how there was still so much tension. They only had a documentary crew in the back for that event to see like, oh, these guys really are not talking to each other and they're hating on each other, especially Jack, you know, because he was still pissed off that their stunt in ECW went bad and blamed Vic for it. So, and Vic was scared shitless. And Vic, great guy, Vic Grimes, by the way, one of the sweetest guys in the business, right? So we all know this, and now we're going out there, and I just remember when he fell, that out of body experience feeling like it was so strong, and I just felt like I came back through a portal of time to like part of me came back to recreate and relive this crazy, impactful, one of the craziest moments in pro wrestling history. Like I just knew it. That's where we were at. I knew that that's what this was at the time. I don't know how to explain it. I knew it. That this was that one of the craziest, wildest moments in pro wrestling history. I'm like, wow, this is it. I'm here. This is where it's happening, and we're here right now. And so when he came down, and I did the scream, and I just at that point I just put the headphones down, and I'm like, okay, we said enough. We don't need to say anymore, you know. And we just kind of ran where the broadcast booth was on the loge section. We kind of ran down by the curtain against the fence for where the floor seats start. And we were just watching, well, along with some of the fans right there. We were just watching and hoping to God he was okay. And everyone's everyone's face was like, what the hell did we just witness? Even the fans, like, is some people like, is this a little too far? Wow, this was awesome. You knew you were a part of history if you were there that night. You knew it. And I don't think I was the only one that felt that.
No, and the announcement about please clear the arena, that added to the whole realism of the situation for sure.
And it was because we didn't know how severe his fall was. We knew he was alive still, thank God. But we didn't know if like he was going to die. You know, we didn't know if he like broke his neck and he's going to be paraplegic. We didn't know any of that. And we didn't have any concern for the rest of the boys, the fans. We just wanted to get everybody out of the way, out of there. We didn't want a riot on our hand. We didn't want anyone to, again, get in the way of like the paramedics and whatever needed to be done. So I will tell you that was an incredible moment in history. And again, I knew somehow, I didn't know how I knew, but I knew that this was, it's like if you take a time machine and you go back to crazy moments in history and you know that you're witnessing that. Well, that's what I felt like at that night. It's hard to explain, but I just knew that was, and it is got to be the craziest, right? I think.
I don't even think it's close.
Yeah,
I think it's number one. I don't think it'll well. I shouldn't say that with people falling through glass and onto light tubes and et cetera, but still, I don't think that's ever going to be topped.
And not only that, but all these other high falls, I'm not taking anything away from like, you know, your Hardys and your Shane McMahons, but those are so controlled and regulated. This was like, yeah, I guess the ring goes right here. Yeah, I guess the tables go right here. Yeah, and again, New Jack, unstable, being the guy, and the whole, again, if you had a film crew, I never really thought about this before this interview, but if you had a film crew in the back leading up, it would be even more of a crazy
Legend.
moment in pro wrestling history. If you would have had a film crew in the back, as crazy as that moment, maybe like you said, number one, it would be 10 times crazier had we had a documentary film crew in the back looking at the guys, looking at all of us, Vic, Jack. It would be even, it would add to it even more. I never thought about that until just now.
Yeah, not to mention the fact that Grimes was what, 350, 360 pounds, and not many high flyers. He's the size of three wrestlers, most of the wrestlers today. So that just adds to it as well. Did you know in the back that Jack was packing a stun gun?
Nope.
And did you have an opportunity to see him afterwards when he was, well, in interviews, he says, mission accomplished, see ya XPW.
Right. That's kind of what it was. Like, you owe me, because I can't remember the extent of his injury when Grimes in ECW, he got the from the height that they were at, he got fright enough to where he just let go a little too late. And man, dude, his hip did come down on Jack's head on the concrete. Jack's
and
lucky
apparently caused him brain fluid and ocular damage in the whole 9 yards.
Yeah,
because he chickened out.
Then that was how Jack looked at it, and so all that was real. All that was 100% real. And Jack's animosity toward him, that was real. But no, I didn't get a chance to talk to Jack. Jack had his own circle, and it was very small, and he did his own thing. And a lot of times when his job was done, he got his money and left. So that was just another night where he did that. And no, I never got to really talk to him. I really never talked to him too much until Cold Day in Hell. That was the most I talked to him was at that show. But that was reunion show in 2008. But no, I didn't. I don't think many people did talk to Jack other than his circle that night. Vic obviously went to the hospital. But man, it was just we knew after that happened and after they edited it, and then when I went into TV and they put it up there, like, oh my gosh, I don't know if this is right, but this is going to put us over the top, and it did. Everyone was talking about it, and we ourselves couldn't believe what we just pulled off. Couldn't believe it. And we're so lucky, like you said, so freaking lucky is Vic. Hit the ring the way he did, hit the tables the way he did, bounced back in off of those top ropes. Unbelievably fortunate and lucky. I mean, he would have died if he didn't hit those ropes. He would have died. And you think about this too. The ring wasn't that far away from the freaking front row fans, from the first 5 rows of fans. I mean, looking back in retrospect, so much could have gone so wrong.
Yeah, it's too bad Jack has unfortunately passed on, because if something would warrant a documentary treatment, it would be that whole deal leading up to it and the aftermath. I'm assuming you saw the Dark Side of the Ring on XPW and just wanted to get you were in it for a bit. Did they talk to you ever about doing an interview, and what were your thoughts on the final product?
Yes, I did see it. We actually did a live a recap show on Extreme Memories. So I had about 10, including myself, there were about 10 of us. Luke Hawx, Joey Chaos, Mike Hartsfield, Billy Messiah, Patrick Hernandez, Homeless Jimmy, Sylvia. I forgive me if I'm missing whoever else, but that was a lot of fun. We did that. We watched it, and we all did a little recap and kind of dissected what was true and what was not true in the documentary. So that's on Extreme Memories. You can archive that, youtube.com/The Wrestling Chatter, and go ahead and check that episode out. Dark Side of the Ring, Extreme Memories recap show. I did watch it. Absolutely. Yeah, they did. They actually contacted me. The producers contacted me. When they were filming out here in LA, they had a studio that they rented out, and this was at the height of the pandemic. So unfortunately, at that time, there were so many rules where they could only have a certain amount of people in that studio at a time. And I think they only had that studio for 2 days. So there were a handful that were in there that got interviewed on camera, and there were, I don't know who else, but there were myself and a bunch of others that got interviewed over the phone. So I had about an hour long conversation slash interview with one of the producers, and they were just asking me a lot of questions, and I didn't know if they were going to be able to call me in or not. They didn't know at all. They didn't know at all either, but they never did, and I was fine with that. I was happy to give them my 2 cents over the phone, and they were already watching my Extreme Memory show, and so they're, oh yeah, we were watching your show now too, and uh, so yeah, I did like a phone interview for like 45 minutes to an hour, and so I guess there was a lot of hearsay that I shared with them that ended up being the information that they put in to some of the document or some of the episode. Um, and yeah, I thought it was, as far as what you asked, if I what I thought of it. Um, I mean, as far as everything that was accurate, it was very well done. Some of the stuff I mean, if you ask me, maybe I'll remember, but I just remember thinking some of the stuff was a little over exaggerated, but not much. That was the world that it was. It was a weird Wild West, um girls everywhere, porn going on, and yet we're doing this thing we all love, pro wrestling. Like, how in the world did we get here, you know?
Mhm, mhm.
And yeah, a lot of that was completely legit. um and I don't think any of us will ever, I don't even think that world will ever be recreated again, the way even if you did have a porn guy that wanted to start a wrestling league, I still don't think you're gonna see that again. We're so, in so many ways, we're at the end of that era, the end of that Wild West wave of the
Mhm.
business, which coincides with craziness, keeping kayfabe alive, paying your dues, all that. We were kind of at the book end of that era, and that was part of it, the Wild West, and
Mhm.
um, and I don't think we're ever going to see that again. And we didn't know we were at the end of that wave. Until like, what, 4 or 5 years later, it's like, wow, the business really has changed.
Yeah, it got immeasurably more boring. Notwithstanding the reunion, Cold Day in Hell, but I wanted to ask you for sure. Were you approached about the recent um, XPW restart? And are you familiar with some of the stuff that's out there that's kind of raising some eyebrows? So two-part question, please.
Yeah, I was a part of it. I was there for the first year of existence. I went to the first show out in New York. First time Rob and I had reunited. We did that show, and then I'm involved with pretty much every show after that for about a year. All I want to say about that is it was we I didn't like the way Rob did business, and something as far as a disagreement happened. So unfortunately, we kind of cut ties, and that's just where we stand right now. That's just the way it is. And as far as where the league is now and where it was going, I don't know if it'll ever, like we said just in the last segment there, I don't think we'll ever see that again as far as the backstage stuff goes. So I don't know if we're ever going to see that as far as how the product unfolded back in the day. I just don't see it happening.
Mhm.
And there were some things that it was fun to be a part of again. And some ways it was felt like a little bit, it felt big time again, in some avenues. And then there were things that were just like completely like ridiculous, like syringe in the testicles and all this stuff.
Yeah,
And
that's
it's
what
like,
comes to mind off the bat. Right, right.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so I'm like, okay, the shock value I remembered back in the day, but this is just done for the sake of doing it. It's not even anything that's impactful. It's just, if we did stuff back in the day, there was more of a reason behind it for doing it. And I'm all for, if it makes sense, do it. And if the performer has no problem, if he's willingly doing it, whatever it is, it's consensual, then I have ever have a problem with any of that. Um, but again, what are we doing here? You know, and that wasn't the reason. You know, I didn't leave because of that, but I maybe it was a part of it subconsciously, but I don't know. But no, it was just a business thing that we kind of had a falling out with and disagreed on. So I'm not watching it now. I don't really. You can ask me what was really going on with it now, but um, it was exciting. I was happy for Rob that he brought it back, and I thought it was very cool. And the original concept he had, I was kind of like, wow, you can't cancel what was canceled. Like from out the gate, it was like, okay, that's interesting. This is a good time to bring it back when you're really not supposed to be bringing it back. I was on board with that, and but I don't know if I was completely down with everything that was executed. Um, but some of the stuff I was, and I mean, I hope it turns a corner and people start liking it, and everybody is, you know, making their money and having fun doing it, and having fun watching it. But yeah, I don't know if this can be recreated. I don't know if we can see 99 to 2003, even the 2008 and 9 reunion shows. I don't know. Not to say that we haven't seen it yet, that it's not possible, but I don't know. I know as much as you and all the people watching.
Yeah, it seems like a lifetime ago in many ways, and I'm not sure it's getting the traction that one would expect with the name. But we shall see. Any product that provides work for the boys and
Yeah,
others is a good thing.
right.
Where I sit. Wanted to switch gears and ask you about your other venture that really captured my imagination when it came out with was Wrestling Society X. Could you just talk about how that came together in terms of concept and execution?
Okay, so when XPW folded, I had an opportunity to move to New York City, and did a Broadway show. The timing couldn't have been better because I didn't have weekly television, and then when I came back to LA, finished college, I reconnected with Kevin Kleinrock, and we were doing indie shows. He did an SCCW reunion show back in '05, which Vince Russo and Ed Ferreira were a part of. Ferreira was a Slammers alumni, Slammers Wrestling Gym. So okay, somehow Kevin got hooked up with Houston Curtis, who was the CEO of a company called Big Vision Entertainment. And if you watch the movie Molly's Game, one of the gamblers in the movie was based on Houston. He was a big time into the Phil Hellmuth, Annie Duke, all that, the major poker players. And so Kevin was working for him. Houston was a fairly well-known producer in the industry. He was going to have a meeting one day for MTV I can't remember if it was a poker show, but he was going. And Kevin, as Houston was leaving the office, Kevin was already working for him. And Kevin, oh, by the way, Houston, can you just mention this to these guys? I have an idea for a wrestling show that's like underground in the bunker, but we have like rock music playing while we're hiding away from the public, and it's a cool vibe. Well, long story short, Houston came back with the original meeting planned for his TV show. They didn't like, oh, but Kevin, they liked your idea for wrestling, and down in a bunker, right? So long story short, the pilot ended up getting greenlit. We did the pilot, and not too long after that, they wanted to go ahead and keep it going because the pilot was very successful, and
Mhm.
and it looked great. I mean, it
Mhm.
looked amazing,
What a
and it looked
roster!
so on the roster was stacked. Yeah, I mean stacked. Even the non wrestling fan, like it just looked for the time. Even now it holds up, I think, but it just looked amazing, right, and different. Um, and I think the half hour, it was only on for a half hour, but I think that concept on paper was great for the non wrestling fan. You can only take so much wrestling, right? That was a concept that made sense on paper, at least. But um, when we got greenlit to do the entire season, all right, this is it, and it was very professional, very well done. The only gripe that we had was when MTV wanted to step in and they just did not know wrestling. I mean, they knew television, but man, oh man, every idea that they had for pro wrestling did not make sense for the psychology, for what we're going to, how this is going to translate to next week's action type thing. That was the frustrating part of the whole deal, because it's like we were in the offices in Burbank. It was literally right across the street from where the Tonight Show recorded. And we would be in these meetings, and I'd come in to do the voiceover to fix certain things and all that. And the execs would be like, we would have so much potential. The show looks great. Oh my gosh, look where we're going. And they'd have to step in and tweak something. And that one little screw, that's all they're taking out is one screw, but then the whole thing falls apart from that one screw. And that was the only thing on that job that was, I remember, being frustrating. Everything else was great. Everybody was professional. Again, getting to work with all these really talented performers, a lot of future stars, and amazing. And the payday was great. I was like, this is awesome. Okay, I'm not complaining on that front at all. And unfortunately, what happened, the big break, backbreaker for the show, was halfway through the season. The production, they just did a clean house sweep of MTV producers. Wrestling Society X was brought on board because they wanted to get that male audience back for MTV that they lost when Jackass left. So this was the attempt with that. Well, halfway through the season, they revamped the whole production team. New production crew came in, and they did away with getting the male audience back. They went back to the teen. My mom's a teen pregnant, shows, and the rest was history. We all know what happened to MTV. So the writing was on the wall about episode 3 or 4, maybe 5, and that was also the time where the fireball, they couldn't show fire with Vampiro's eyes, and it just, everything was kind of shit. The writing's on the wall. They took something that already looked good and they made it look a little corny at times, that was already produced to work, and lead right into the second season. But it never happened. And unfortunately, the writing on the wall with changing the network, and from let's get that male audience back, that was the true nail in the coffin, I think. Well, but a great experience, like amazing working in television in that sense. I did it with XPW, but now this is a complete different level. You have all different camera angles. You have these cranes coming in, the live shot of the arena, and the lighting, and it, like, really top notch, professionally done, and a great experience as far as just working in television, and again being able to produce alongside of Houston and Kevin, and getting a little bit more hands-on as far as a producer is concerned. Great experience. Very thankful.
Yeah, and that's definitely a shame, because here we are, still talking about it so many years later. So obviously it was, an innovative. Maybe the argument could have been made that it was a little before its time, but
I agree.
Yeah, definitely memorable. Kris, you've been extremely generous with your time, but I wanted to ask you before we wrap up, your thoughts on what we call pro wrestling today. Not talking about independent wrestling or anything else other than the big two, WWE, which seems to be they're doing better business than ever, but they have 20-30 minute soliloquies in their television product, and then A&E is very heavy on high spots, and I keep calling it A&E, but it's AEW.
Yeah, I know you mean.
That's a Freudian slip, maybe.
Right.
But in terms of going to the other sort of extreme, do you watch the big two today? And if so, what do you think?
I haven't been watching. I just caught up with other things in my life. I last couple of years I've been a little more out of it. It was hard to I don't know. There's multiple reasons. Once you work in the business, it's really at times can be difficult to immerse yourself and be that fan again because you see everything. You understand what they're doing, and then if you're critiquing it, it's even harder. Um, I don't watch right now. I kind of get back into it here and there. Usually this is, Royal Rumble, WrestleMania is the time of year you get back into it. This is the first year where I kind of haven't. But I've seen enough to where I know, look, I guess what frustrates me about it is I understand now and know exactly how limited they are in certain areas of what they can do. I know how limited they are. And to me, though, it's hard to get back into it when I know that Wild West, because it didn't just only apply to XPW, it applied to the entire business. We just happened to be in a porn office when it was, but it's unfortunate that wrestling is hindered and limited and suppressed and censored, and their creativity is kind of condensed now as opposed to how it used to be. And when I see that, it really makes it hard for me to like immerse myself into the product. um Wrestling was one of the last forms of mainstream entertainment that was able to get away with politically incorrect things. For example, like when movies and television, even music, right, to a degree, when those were, you see through time when they were, oh, okay, you were only allowed to do this, you weren't really allowed to say certain things even in R-rated movies. Wrestling still had the green light to do it when TV and movies were starting to become monitored and censored and limited, right? And the crazy, outlandish things, controversial things it could say. Pro wrestling, and I know this from experience with people knocking at critics and all this. We would always come back with, and the industry would too, like, well, you guys do know that pro wrestling is a work. I don't like to say the word fake, but it's a show. It's a spectacle. It's entertainment. And then they would come back with, oh, you know what? I don't think it's real. Do you think it's real? No. I'm not. I don't think it's real. Yeah, you're stupid if you think it's real. Okay, yeah, you're right. Yeah, wrestling. See, I know it's fake, so go ahead and keep doing what you're doing. So wrestling got this, in a weird way, it got a longer green light to be able to be free and do outlandish, which controversial now things. So when that fully went away for me, that's not everything that is what wrestling's about, but that's a big part of it that I miss. But the performance, I mean, look, in Wrestling Society X, we had great performers. It was hard to put all that psychology in a 30-minute show, but the performers were unbelievable. So I have an appreciation for that. Whether it was AEW or WWE today, presenting that, absolutely phenomenal athleticism. The psychology and when someone's being limited in a pro wrestling world, you can really see them acting now, and that is a part that I think hinders the business, hinders the creativity, and that's that's the biggest takeaway for me for where the business is at today.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. Where can the fans keep up with, two-part question, where can they find you on social media platforms? And please tell us, in addition to your works on YouTube, what do you have going on that the fans can be aware of and support?
Okay, so I'm mainly on Facebook. My name KR, like you see right here on the screen, KRIS KLOSS. Hit me up on my instant messenger. We're not we're on hiatus now with the Wrestling Chatter, but check out those shows again, youtube.com/the Wrestling Chatter.